Right now, inside some of the biggest tech companies in the world, workers are burning through 700 million AI tokens a week in a bizarre new corporate game called Tokenmaxxing. Meanwhile, OpenAI is aggressively pivoting away from chatbots to build a fully autonomous AI researcher by 2028, and Elon Musk just dropped $20 billion on a facility to beam AI compute down from space. If you're trying to keep up with the latest models, you already know things move fast. Welcome to Inuku.com, AI news you can use, your daily dose of AI know-how. Let's talk about token maxing. Workers are literally spending thousands of dollars in computing costs just to flex on internal company leaderboards. And the crazy thing is, even if what they're doing is pure productivity theater, they're still doing it. This is exactly the kind of wild, invisible shift driving the industry today. We are actively crossing the threshold into the Agentic Enterprise Era. The era of the novelty chatbot is completely dead. The entire industry is waking up to the fact that just typing a question into a text box and getting a paragraph back is not the end state of artificial intelligence. OpenAI realizes this better than anyone. They are fundamentally restructuring their entire operation right now. The goal is no longer a better chatbot. The goal is building a multi-agent AI researcher. And their timeline is incredibly aggressive. They are releasing what they call an AI intern by September of 2026. This isn't just an email assistant. This is an AI designed to handle complex multi-day tasks. But that's just the warm-up act. That intern is really just the precursor to a fully autonomous system they are targeting for 2028. They're building this on their Codex model and utilizing sandboxed reasoning systems. If you aren't familiar with that term, it essentially means the AI has a safe, isolated digital environment to test its own code, make mistakes, and correct itself before deploying a final solution. The mechanics of how they're getting to that 2028 vision tell you everything you need to know about where the global economy is heading. To pull off this fully autonomous system, OpenAI is aggressively expanding, jumping from around 4,500 up to 8,000 employees by the end of this year. But here's the fascinating part. They aren't just hiring engineers to build the models. There is a massive influx of sales teams and specialized technical ambassadors. So if the entire goal of this company is to build a fully autonomous AI that literally does the work for us, why do they need to double their human staff just to sell it? Because autonomy requires immense trust, and trust, especially at the Fortune 500 level, still requires a human handshake. OpenAI is executing a massive enterprise land grab right now. They're actively locking in private equity firms with incredibly generous terms. We're talking about a guaranteed 17.5% minimum return and VIP early access to their newest models. They want to deploy their tools across those massive private equity portfolios instantly. It's a strategic maneuver to outflank rivals like Anthropic and embed themselves so deeply into corporate infrastructure that ripping them out becomes impossible. And they absolutely have to do this because the underlying economics of their current consumer model are just staggering. ChatGPT currently costs them $17 billion annually to run. Just keeping the lights on, the electricity alone to power those servers, is $3 billion. When you have 900 million weekly active users generating 1 trillion queries a year, and you are only charging a flat subscription fee to a fraction of them, the math breaks. The 50 million paying subscribers simply aren't covering the spread, which is exactly why we're seeing them roll out ads to all free and go-tier users in the US. This is powered by Criteo, and the pricing strategy is wild. They're commanding a $60 CPM, that's $60 per thousand impressions, and demanding $200,000 minimum commitments from massive brands like Shopify, Target, Williams-Sonoma, and Adobe. But those ads are really just a temporary bridge. Sam Altman's ultimate vision isn't to be an ad network. It's a total structural shift to utility-style metering. He wants to sell intelligence exactly like electricity or water. Imagine renting an apartment where instead of a flat monthly rate, you're suddenly being charged per individual breath of air conditioning. That is a fundamental shift in how we value and consume digital tools. You won't pay a flat software license. You will pay strictly for the compute tokens your company consumes. That shift to utility computing and autonomous agents is already altering the DNA of other tech giants. Look at what is happening inside Meta. Mark Zuckerberg has issued a top-down mandate. He's personally building a highly personalized AI agent to completely bypass traditional management layers. So instead of asking a vice president to compile a report, which takes 3 days and involves 5 people, his agent just reaches directly into the data repository, pulls the real-time company info, synthesizes it, and hands it directly to him. And that behavior at the top is cascading down through the entire organization. Meta employees are mimicking the CEO by building their own internal AI chiefs of staff. These aren't just search bars. They are custom systems designed to securely access internal files, talk to other AI systems autonomously, and manage complex multi-stage projects. This is triggering a massive structural flattening of the workforce. They're increasing their output dramatically, but they aren't growing their headcount to do it. And that flattening is where we hit a critical concept that really defines this entire era. We need to unlock what an agentic workflow actually is, because it is fundamentally different from the AI we've been using for the past few years. If a traditional chatbot is like a digital encyclopedia, an agentic workflow is like an invisible project manager. It doesn't just wait for you to ask a question. It independently chains multiple tasks together, evaluates its own work, makes decisions, and executes actions across different software platforms, all without you holding its hand, which connects perfectly back to that bizarre token-maxing trend. If your output is suddenly being augmented by an invisible project manager that does 80% of the heavy lifting, how do you prove to your human boss that you're working hard? You burn tokens. You burn tokens to look busy on the dashboard. It's like bragging about having the biggest gas tank in the company parking lot, even if you never actually drive the car out of your space. It's a metric of consumption masking as a metric of value. This agentic flattening isn't just a Silicon Valley experiment anymore. It is aggressively infiltrating legacy B2B industries globally. Over in China, Alibaba just launched Axial Work, which runs on their Wukong multi-agent platform. It essentially operates as an autonomous operations team for small and medium businesses. Tencent is doing the exact same thing with Clawbot, wiring their OpenClaw agent directly into WeChat to handle consumer and business tasks seamlessly. It's hitting traditional Western finance too. HSBC just appointed a new chief AI officer with a very specific mandate: aggressively automate coding, credit workflows, and fraud detection. When you think about it, credit and fraud are perfect use cases. You need an agent that can instantly synthesize thousands of financial data points and make an autonomous judgment call faster than a human underwriter ever could. We're even seeing it in sports and entertainment. IBM partnered with the Masters tournament using their Granite models and the Watson X platform. But they aren't using massive, expensive models. They are deploying highly focused, specialized AI to run the Masters Vault search. This agentic system uses optical character recognition and speech-to-text to automatically watch and index 50 years of historic golf broadcast video. It catalogs every swing, every announcer comment, so you can just talk to the archive and it finds exactly what you need. But it's one thing to index old golf videos. The stakes change entirely when you ask an agent to index human biology. That's what is happening in biotech right now. InSilico launched PandaClaw, which is basically a virtual biologist. It navigates massive proprietary data warehouses of genetic and chemical information and formulates novel disease hypotheses entirely autonomously. It's incredible. But here is where we hit the friction. Despite all this momentum, there is a massive wall of human resistance. A global study called AI Irony by Economist Impact found that 88% of executives believe AI is a critical competitive advantage, but only 4% are actually getting scalable returns. That gap is staggering. And the study shows it's not a technology problem, it's a structural human problem. Companies are severely underinvesting in structured training. There's a total lack of corporate governance. And most importantly, there's massive middle management resistance. It makes perfect sense when you look at the psychology of it. It's like giving a team of accountants a supercomputer And they intentionally use it as a very expensive doorstop because they're terrified it's going to steal their stapler. Middle managers know exactly what an agentic workflow means for their job title, so they drag their feet and stall the deployment. Honestly, maybe they have a point. Handing the keys over to autonomous agents across all these legacy industries creates an absolute cybersecurity nightmare. We are looking at a severe endpoint security crisis that the industry is quietly panicking over. At the recent RSA conference, CrowdStrike unveiled new Falcon platform innovations entirely focused on securing these autonomous endpoints. Because when agents are talking to agents, humans are totally out of the loop. CrowdStrike is actively hunting down shadow AI workflows, which is when employees use unapproved AI tools that leak corporate data, and they're building runtime prompt layer protection. This means they're putting security checkpoints directly on desktop apps like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot to catch malicious instructions before they trick the AI into handing over sensitive files. Cisco is tackling the exact same threat with DefenseClaw, an open-source secure agent framework they've integrated with NVIDIA OpenShell, their new Cisco AI Defense Explorer Edition, and Splunk. The goal is to fix massive identity and authentication flaws so an AI agent doesn't accidentally gain admin access to the entire corporate network. But here's the defining tension of the agentic era. If we lock down these AI agents with aggressive, real-time security checkpoints, don't we accidentally kill the exact autonomy we just spent billions of dollars trying to build? You want the AI to run fast and free, but if it runs off a cliff, it takes the company with it, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The Global Risk Institute just issued a deeply chilling warning. They stated that the financial sector is becoming so dangerously reliant on third-party AI ecosystems that it's creating hidden vulnerabilities. If one major AI provider goes down or gets hacked, it could trigger cascading, systemic, industry-wide failures. They are demanding immediate board-level accountability because the concentration risk is completely off the charts. And it's not just the software and security protocols breaking down under the pressure. The sheer scale of these models is literally breaking physical reality. We have hit a point where the bottleneck for AI isn't code anymore. It's copper wire, transformers, and the physical power grid. We just saw OpenAI secure a historic $110 billion funding round backed by SoftBank, NVIDIA, and Amazon. That money isn't for software development. It is purely to scale physical infrastructure. Over in Europe, their massive data center expansion is hitting a brick wall with severe grid capacity limits. They simply do not have the electricity to plug these things in. This is forcing hardware companies to completely reinvent themselves as energy companies. NVIDIA is developing flexible AI factories using their new Vera Rubin DSX architecture. They're partnering with Emerald AI and major energy providers like AES and Constellation. These aren't just server farms anymore. They integrate massive battery storage and on-site power generation, so they actually act as flexible grid assets. When the local city needs power, the data center can feed energy back into the system, actively stabilizing the U.S. power grid and unlocking up to 100 gigawatts of total capacity. The infrastructure plays we are seeing are massive. Core AI Holdings formed a joint venture with Toto Digital to build incredibly high-density AI campuses. Nebius, over in Europe, closed a $4.34 billion convertible debt round strictly to fund a $16 to $20 billion capital expenditure plan, specifically for 2026. While NVIDIA is certainly focused on those centralized data centers, with Jensen Huang projecting they will hit $1 trillion in data center revenue by 2027 just off those new chips, they are also executing a massive edge compute pivot. This is a big one. They're partnering with T-Mobile to put AI directly onto AI-RAN-ready 5G infrastructure. To understand why this matters, we need to define edge compute. Imagine skipping the dreaded daily commute to a centralized cloud server. Instead of sending data hundreds of miles away to be processed, edge compute processes the data exactly where it is born, on the factory floor or inside the car. This enables near zero latency, which is absolutely non-negotiable if you are trying to run autonomous vehicles or industrial robotics safely. Elon Musk is taking this demand for compute to the absolute extreme with a project called Terafab. He announced a $20 billion joint venture in Austin between Tesla, SpaceX, and xAI to build the world's largest chip manufacturing facility. They're aiming to generate 1 terawatt of computing power annually. They're building specialized chips for terrestrial stuff like his Optimus robots, but they're also building space-grade chips. Yes, the compute race is officially going to space. Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin filed for Project Sunrise, which aims to put 51,600 solar-powered AI data center satellites into orbit. They're directly competing against SpaceX, StarCloud, and Google's Project Suncatcher. Think about that. Instead of fighting over extension cords down here on Earth, billionaires are literally moving the server room into orbit just to plug directly into the sun. It is a stunning evasion of terrestrial gridlock. But while they look to space to solve the energy crisis, the sheer economic dominance of this physical infrastructure has sparked a vicious geopolitical and regulatory turf war. The U.S. White House is currently pushing a federal preemption framework. Their goal is to create one single national rulebook, blocking individual states from writing their own fragmented AI laws and deferring all these messy copyright battles to the federal courts. This has naturally triggered a massive jurisdictional tug-of-war. Over 50 Republican state legislators have flat out rejected that federal framework, arguing local governments need to set their own guardrails. At the same time, you have Senator Marsha Blackburn introducing a massive 300-page federal AI bill demanding a strict duty of care, pushing to end Section 230 liability protections for AI, and imposing severe criminal penalties for companies whose chatbots speak explicitly to minors. Conservative lobbying groups like the Alliance for a Better Future are also pushing for tougher national rules. The political friction is intense, and it's happening precisely because the technology is moving so fast. And while the U.S. wrestles with how to regulate it domestically, the global capabilities race is completely unrestrained. A U.S. congressional advisory body just issued a major warning about China's absolute dominance in open-source AI. Global developers are flocking to Chinese open-source models for two very simple reasons: cost and customization. They are cheaper to run, and developers can customize them without hitting the strict corporate guardrails that U.S. companies impose. The advisory body sees this open-source migration as a massive, direct threat to the U.S. lead in robotics and agentic workflows, which probably explains the very controversial move Anthropic just made. The company that was quite literally founded on the premise of AI safety has officially loosened its responsible scaling policy. Their chief science officer, Jared Kaplan, explicitly stated that making unilateral commitments to halt AI training just doesn't make sense anymore in this kind of global arms race. They immediately followed that up by releasing Claude Code channels for Telegram and Discord, allowing developers to set up recurring autonomous tasks. It certainly signals that market dominance has eclipsed voluntary restraint. Companies realize that if they pause, their global competitors will just sprint past them. But amidst all this regulatory and geopolitical chaos, we have to look at the tangible, real-world economic impacts happening today, because they are completely altering traditional industries. Look at agriculture. A New Zealand startup called Halter is about to hit a $2 billion valuation, led by Peter Thiel's Founders Fund. It's powered by something they call the Cowgorithm. This is one of the most wild applications we've seen. They use solar-powered GPS collars to track 6,000 data points a minute, digestion, fertility, movement, everything, on 600,000 cattle. And they use audio and vibration cues sent directly to the collar to herd the cows autonomously. They have completely eliminated physical fences, farm dogs, and manual herding. It's wild to think about. You have a cloud-based invisible sheepdog essentially texting a cow where to eat. Meanwhile, down the street, someone is going to federal prison for running a synthetic music cartel. A North Carolina man just pleaded guilty to using automated bot networks to stream hundreds of thousands of fake AI-generated music tracks. He pulled in $8 million in fraudulent royalties over a few years, and he's now facing up to 5 years in prison. It's a very stark warning about the new secondary markets being created for the monetization of synthetic content. But the platform holders themselves are cashing in massively On this exact same synthetic boom, Apple quietly made $900 million last year, strictly from App Store fees on generative AI apps. The secondary market for model iteration is exploding too. Cursor's new Composer 2 model, it turns out, is actually built on top of Moonshot AI's Kimi 2.5 open base model, which they trained further with reinforcement learning. And on the generative video front, Kling 3.0 just took the absolute top spot on the global AI video leaderboard. The institutional money recognizes exactly what this means. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink just told clients that this is not a trend. This is a permanent structural shift in the global economy, though he did issue a severe warning that this boom is going to dramatically widen the global wealth divide if broader market participation doesn't happen. Meanwhile, the capital keeps following. Solo venture capitalists are thriving right now. Nathan Benach of Air Street Capital just raised a $232 million fund strictly for highly technical AI startups. Before we get into the final takeaways, just a reminder that you can find more insights like this at anuku.com. So, when we pull all of these threads together, from OpenAI's massive pivot to invisible project managers, to orbital data centers, to solar-powered cows, what does this all actually mean for you listening right now? It means you have to fundamentally update your mental model of what AI is. The era of treating AI as a neat trick or novelty chatbot to write emails is completely over. Done. You are now navigating a world powered by agentic, autonomous digital laborers. They run on metered utility power. They are backed by orbital gigawatt infrastructure, and they are actively flattening the corporate structure around you. The gap between those who learn to leverage these invisible project managers and those who get stuck playing productivity theater by burning tokens is going to become insurmountable very quickly. Which leaves you with one final, mind-bending thought to take with you today. If we are moving toward a reality where intelligence is a metered utility and workers are already trying to game the system to automate their jobs, what happens in a year or two when your company's AI agents start secretly hiring and paying other sub-agents using their own utility-metered budgets? We could be looking at the birth of an entirely synthetic, dark corporate economy operating at light speed that the human CEO can't even perceive. And that's your daily dose of AI know-how from Inuku.com.